How do you protect your kid when the danger is sleeping right in your bed? I'm Graham Whitlock. I told my wife, Vanessa, that I was leaving for a work trip. The second my taillights disappeared, she shoved my son, Ethan, into a corner and hissed, "Just ignore it. Be deaf, dumb, and blind." Then she texted her lover, Marcus. "Come over. My husband's gone." I played it back through the recorder, heard the front door swing open, the living room fill with their laughter, and the safe click. Cash, property papers, and everything I'd worked my whole life for laid out like trophies. If you're a father, leave a comment, hit subscribe, and keep watching. Because when I came back, my life changed forever. I'm Graham Whitlock, midlife, steady job, quiet neighborhood kind of guy, the kind who pays the mortgage on time and thinks a man's word still means something. I live out in the suburbs, where the lawns are trimmed and everyone waves like they've got nothing to hide. My garage is my little kingdom, tools on the wall, work boots by the door, the smell of dust and plywood clinging to my clothes. I run construction jobs. Not glamorous, but it keeps the lights on. Some weeks I'm gone a few days at a time, sleeping in cheap motels, eating whatever's open late, telling myself it's worth it because I'm building a future. Ethan is my boy, not my wife's. He's quiet, polite, the kind of kid who says yes sir without being told twice. When Vanessa came into our lives, she felt like calm, like someone who could soften the edges. So I did what a lot of men do. I trusted her with the one thing that mattered most. And looking back now, I can say it plain. I put my faith in the wrong person. That morning, everything looked normal, too normal. Coffee steaming on the counter, my keys by the bowl, my work bag sitting heavy like it always does. I told Vanessa I had a longer trip this time. A few days turned into maybe a week. I didn't say it for drama. I said it because I wanted to see what happened when I wasn't there. Ethan followed me like he wasn't sure he was allowed to. When I bent down to lace my boots, his hand caught my sleeve. Small grip, quick, then he pulled back like he'd made a mistake. It hit me weird, right in the chest. He wasn't a clingy kid. He never was. Vanessa came in, sweet as pie, voice soft, smile too bright. "Babe, you're gonna miss traffic. Go now." She kissed my cheek like we were in a commercial, but her eyes didn't land on Ethan. She looked past him, like he was furniture. Ethan wouldn't meet her gaze. He stared at the floor, jaw tight, shoulders drawn up. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I was tired, that I was seeing ghosts. Then, as I reached for the door, he leaned in and whispered, so low I almost missed it, "Dad, don't be gone long." Ethan's whisper followed me to the door like a cold draft. I reached for my jacket, and that's when I saw it, fresh bruising on his forearm, the kind that isn't from a playground tumble, purple turning yellow at the edges, finger-shaped. My stomach tightened. Before I could even ask, Vanessa slid in fast, smile already loaded. "He fell at school," she said, like she'd been waiting for the line. Her tone was light, almost bored. Ethan didn't correct her. He just stood there, too still, eyes down, like silence was something he'd practiced. I knelt a little, kept my voice calm. "When? Where exactly?" I wanted him to answer. I needed him to. But Vanessa's face changed in a blink. The sweetness drained out. "Why are you interrogating him?" she snapped, sharp enough to cut. "He told you. He fell." I held the moment for one more breath, then swallowed it. I told myself I couldn't blow up the house at 6 a.m. I told myself I'd handle it later. Ethan finally looked up, just a second. Not words. A plea. And I walked out anyway. At that moment, I still thought I was dealing with a bad marriage. I didn't know yet. I was dealing with a dangerous one. All day, that look stayed on me. The job site noise didn't drown it out. The saws, the radios, the guys yelling measurements. I was framing a doorway when my phone buzzed. A message from Ethan's school. Unexcused absence, late arrival. My heart dropped in a way I can't explain. It wasn't panic yet. It was something heavier, like a warning bell. I texted Vanessa. She shot back quick. "They messed up. He's fine." No detail, no concern, just irritation. That didn't sit right. So I stepped away from the crew, put my back to a stack of plywood, and called the school myself. The front office transferred me to someone who didn't sound surprised. She lowered her voice and said, "Mr. Whitlock. Ethan's been coming in scared, quiet, flinching. He doesn't talk much, but it's noticeable. Piece by piece, the picture sharpened, the bruise, the rehearsed silence, Vanessa's snap. I didn't call her back to argue. What's the point with a liar who's ready? I made a decision instead. I needed the truth, clean and undeniable, and I said it under my breath like a promise. If anything is happening to my son, I won't forgive. After that call with the school, I didn't feel like a husband anymore. I felt like a guard who'd been asleep on duty. I stopped by a store on the way home and bought a little voice recorder. Nothing fancy, just palm-sized, the kind people use for notes. Before I did anything, I made sure I wasn't doing something stupid or illegal. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for the truth. That night, when the house was quiet, I tested it. Clear sound, no static. I tucked it where nobody would think to look. High, out of reach, where it could catch the living room and the hallway without being seen. I checked the battery twice. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. In the morning, I played my role. Work boots, travel bag, a kiss on Vanessa's cheek. I'll be gone a while. She smiled like she'd won something. I drove off slow, turned 2 streets over, and parked where I could still see my front door. My heart was thumping like it wanted out. I stared at the steering wheel and told myself, steady, I need facts, I need proof. Then I hit record, and everything started. A minute after I left, I heard the deadbolt slide home. That sound, clean, final, made my skin crawl. Vanessa didn't wait. Her voice snapped sharp, like the mask fell off mid-step. "What did your dad tell you?" she demanded. Ethan answered the way a scared kid answers when he's trying to survive. "Nothing." Vanessa laughed once, mean, small. "Don't lie to me." Her tone dropped lower, colder. "If you open your mouth and tell him anything, you'll regret it." Ethan didn't argue. He didn't cry. He went quiet the way you go quiet when you've learned noise makes it worse. She kept pressing him anyway, like she wanted to hear herself win. "So you're going to be deaf. You're going to be dumb. You're going to be blind. You hear me?" The words came out like rules in a prison. Ethan whispered, "Yes." And then, the slap. That's when I realized something worse than cheating was happening. This wasn't anger, this was training. It wasn't the loudest sound on the recording. The loudest sound was what came after. Ethan's silence. No sobs, no protest, just air, thin and shaking. That's when I knew the bruise wasn't an accident. It was a system. That's when I realized something worse than cheating was happening. This wasn't anger. This was training a child to disappear. The silence after that slap didn't last long. Vanessa's voice shifted, lighter, almost cheerful, like she'd just finished some boring chore. I heard her footsteps, the soft tap of her nails on the counter, then the tiny click of her phone unlocking. A screen glow in a dark room. And then her laugh, thin, cold, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Hey, Marcus," she said, like she was calling to order takeout. "He's gone. A whole month." Marcus sounded cautious. "Why don't we just do the hotel like before?" Vanessa snapped fast. "No, not the hotel. This house is clean, safe, quiet. We can actually relax." She said it like my home belonged to her, like my rules didn't exist the second my car turned the corner. Then she lowered her voice and added the part that made my stomach twist. "Don't worry about the kid. He'll be quiet as a rock." I heard Ethan's breathing nearby, small, shallow, trying not to be noticed. That's what scared me most. He wasn't crying. He wasn't yelling. He was freezing, like an animal that learns stillness is the only shield it has. Ethan must have shifted, just a tiny sound, maybe a shoe against the floor, because Vanessa's tone changed instantly. The sweetness vanished. "What was that?" she hissed. She moved close enough that her voice hit the recorder like a blade. "Didn't I tell you?" she said. "Deaf, dumb, blind. Not advice, a commandment. The rules of survival in my own living room." Ethan tried to answer, and she cut him off before the words could form. "You tell your dad anything," she whispered, "and you're dead." She didn't say it like an exaggeration. She said it like a promise, like she'd already pictured it. That was the first moment I understood this could end with my son not coming home alive. Ethan started to tremble. You can hear it when a kid is trying to hold back tears, those quick little breaths, the throat working hard to swallow what's coming. He kept trying to be small, invisible, like he could disappear inside his own skin. Out in my parked truck, I listened with the volume low, and it still felt too loud. My mouth went dry. My gut rolled. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, because if I didn't hold on to something, I swear I would have broken. A car rolled up to my driveway like it had every right to be there. I heard the tires crunch the gravel, the engine idle, then the soft thunk of a door closing. Vanessa's voice brightened instantly, too bright. She opened my front door with that fake hostess energy, like she was welcoming a guest into her house. "Baby, you made it," she said, and I could hear the smile in her throat. Marcus stepped inside and the air changed. You can hear it, two people slipping into a private world right in the middle of my living room. Vanessa introduced him like it was harmless. "This is my friend," she said, casual, dismissive, like my marriage was a detail. Then she called Ethan over. My son's footsteps were slow, careful, like he was walking on glass. Vanessa's voice tightened. "Greet him." Ethan mumbled something, barely a sound. "No," Vanessa snapped. "Say it right." She dragged the words out, making him repeat them like a trained pet. "Good. After noon." One word at a time. "Louder." Ethan forced it out again, voice shaking. Marcus gave a thin little chuckle, nothing warm in it, just a man amused by a boy being broken. Marcus didn't even pretend to care about Ethan. He spoke over him, like my kid was a lamp in the corner. "So," he said, low and smug, "the boy hasn't said anything?" Vanessa laughed under her breath. "He knows better," she said. "He's learned his place." That phrase hit me hard, because it wasn't discipline, it was ownership. Marcus asked about the hotel again, and Vanessa cut him off like it annoyed her. "Why would we waste money?" she said. "This is better. Clean. Private." She said private the way people talk about getting away with something, like my living room was a secret room built for them. Ethan stood there the whole time, quiet, eyes down, shoulders rounded. I could hear him breathing, small, controlled, like he was trying not to exist. And then I heard them laugh, not nervous laughter, real laughter. In my house, in the space where I used to sit with my son and watch a game on Sundays. Marcus's voice dropped, almost disbelieving, like he was tasting the risk. "Wait, in your husband's house? For real?" Marcus's question hung in the air for half a second. Then Vanessa answered it with action. I heard her heels move with purpose, straight past the couch, straight toward the spot she knew I kept the important stuff. Not her stuff, mine. The things a man builds his whole life around and expects to still be there when he comes home. Then came the sound that made my blood run cold, metal on metal. A tight little click, followed by that heavier shift, like a safe door giving up. It's a sound you only hear when someone has access they shouldn't. Vanessa didn't hesitate. Paper rustled, envelopes slid out. The kind that hold deeds, account info, business documents, boring words that suddenly become your entire identity. Then cash. A thick stack. I could almost picture it on the coffee table, spread out like it was a prize. Marcus's breathing changed. He tried to play it cool, but you can hear greed when it wakes up. Ethan didn't say a word, just stood there watching, like a kid watching strangers strip his home down to studs. Vanessa laughed, soft, satisfied, and said, "From now on, we're rich." That's when Ethan slipped. Just one sentence, small and honest, the way kids blurt truth before fear catches up. "That's my dad's," he said. Not loud, not disrespectful, just instinct, like he couldn't watch his home get robbed without naming it. Vanessa was on him instantly. No warning, no pause. I heard fabric grab, a sharp tug, like she yanked him by the shirt or clamped down on his shoulder to shut his body up. Ethan sucked in air, and my stomach clenched hard enough to hurt. Marcus didn't even flinch. His voice came out flat, almost annoyed. "Shut up, kid," like Ethan was interrupting a transaction. Vanessa pulled Ethan closer, her mouth near his ear. Her voice dropped so low it turned ugly. "You want to disappear?" she whispered. "You want to be gone for good?" The words weren't dramatic, they were controlled, measured, the kind of threat that's been practiced. Ethan stopped breathing for a beat, then went quiet the way a child goes quiet when he understands the rules. Stay alive first, tell the truth later, if later ever comes. And then she hissed the line that made my vision blur in my truck. "You want to die?" I'd heard enough to kick the door in, enough to put my hands on Marcus, enough to drag Vanessa out by her lies. But I didn't move. Not yet. Not because I was scared of them, because I was scared for Ethan. One wrong move, 1 second too early, and my son becomes the lever they pull. So I stayed in that truck and did the hardest thing a father can do. I listened. If I had gone in right then, I would have felt like a hero, and my son would have paid for it. I needed them to say the parts that can't be argued away later. How long, how often, what they plan to take, what they plan to do. I let the recorder drink it all in, every insult, every threat, every "we're good," they whispered like criminals congratulating themselves. While they talked, my mind went cold and practical. If I go in, where does Ethan run? Which door is safest? Who can I call that won't ask questions first? I pictured him slipping past them, bare feet on hardwood, hiding in the bathroom with the lock turned, and I hated myself for even needing to picture that. Then Vanessa said it, casual, like she was talking about trash day. "I'll deal with the kid." After that, Marcus got quieter, like even he could feel how far this had gone. He asked, "Your husband's really gone a month?" Not concern, just calculation, like he was checking the clock on a robbery. Vanessa answered with this smug little confidence that made my teeth grind. "I've got everything under control," she said. "He's predictable." She said my name without saying it, like I was a routine, like I was something she could schedule around. Marcus chuckled, and then they started talking like this was old business, like they'd been living a second life right under my roof. Vanessa mentioned all these months, like it was nothing, like it was a hobby. And Marcus didn't sound surprised. That's what hit me. This wasn't a slip-up. This wasn't one bad night. This was a pattern. Then Vanessa laughed, real laughter, and said something that sliced clean through whatever was left of my pride. She made me sound stupid, soft, easy to fool. The kind of man who works, provides, comes home tired, and doesn't ask too many questions. My face went hot. My chest went tight. I felt my dignity getting crushed in slow motion. Marcus let it hang there for a beat, then said, almost impressed, "So, it's been going on that long?" After they finished congratulating themselves, Vanessa turned back into a boss, except the only employee was my kid. I heard her shove a rag into Ethan's hands and tell him to scrub the floor. Not once. Over and over. Back and forth like she was trying to erase something. The living room. The hallway. Anywhere Marcus's shoes had tracked in. Ethan's breathing got heavier as the minutes dragged. He tried to sound polite when he asked, "Can I rest?" It wasn't whining. It was a kid running out of strength. Vanessa didn't soften. She didn't even raise her voice at first. That was the sick part. Calm cruelty. "You don't have rights in this house," she said, like she was stating a rule everyone already knew. Marcus laughed a little, like it was entertainment between them. Like watching a boy work himself to the edge was part of the fun. Then something tipped. Maybe a chair leg, maybe a side table, wood scraping, then a dull thud. Ethan gasped. He made this small, choked sound, like a sob caught in his throat, and Vanessa barked, sharp as a slap. "Shut up!" The house went quiet for a second, and in that quiet, Marcus's voice came in low and casual, too casual. "You know," he said, "there are ways to handle obstacles." He didn't say Ethan's name. He didn't have to. That's what men like him do. They keep their hands clean with words. Vanessa didn't flinch. "I know how to deal with it," she answered, like he'd brought up a messy chore. Then they started talking around it. Half sentences, hints, the kind of conversation that makes your skin crawl because it's careful. "Accidents happen," Marcus said. "Kids fall." Vanessa agreed, like she'd already rehearsed the story. A slip on the stairs, a fall in the yard, a bruise that turns into a lie that turns into a funeral. Cheating doesn't rehearse alibis. This did. Ethan heard it. You can hear the panic when someone tries to control their breathing and fails. His breaths got fast, thin, like he was drowning on dry land. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just cheating. This was danger. Vanessa said the sentence that iced my blood. If he disappears, nobody's even gonna ask. Cheating ends marriages. What I was hearing could end a child's life. After Vanessa said that line about Ethan disappearing, everything in the house felt tighter, like the air got thinner. I heard Ethan's footsteps drift toward the kitchen, slow and careful. There was a soft drawer sound, like he was reaching for a phone. For a second, my chest lifted. Good, call someone. Then it stopped. Dead quiet. He backed off. Fear won. A kid doesn't choose silence for no reason. He chooses it because he's been trained that asking for help gets him hurt. Vanessa hovered like a warden, checking on him between her laughs with Marcus. And Marcus, he started taking pictures. I heard the quick taps of a camera shutter, the rustle of envelopes, my cash, my deeds, proof of my life. They weren't just cheating me. They were packaging me up to leave behind. Vanessa talked about transfers, about going out of state, like it was a weekend plan. That's when my decision landed hard and simple. This ends tonight. I turned my key. The engine caught. Headlights washed the street, but I still didn't step out. I wasn't sitting outside my house anymore. I was standing between my son and something irreversible. With the truck idling, I sat there and replayed every time Ethan had told me, "I'm fine." Every time I'd taken it at face value because I was tired, because I wanted peace, because I didn't want to believe my own house could be unsafe. Now I understood what "I'm fine" really meant. It meant, please don't make it worse. It meant, I'm surviving. That realization didn't make me angry first. It made me ashamed. A father's shame is a quiet thing, heavy, slow, and sharp around the edges. I kept seeing his bruised arm in my mind like a stain I couldn't scrub out. So I forced myself into something colder. Focus. If I burst in swinging, Ethan pays for it. If I turn this into a screaming match, Vanessa turns it into a story. I needed to be clean and clear. I practiced the questions I'd ask Ethan later, gentle, not trapping him. What happened? When? Are you hurt right now? No blame, no pressure. Then I set my rule for Vanessa. No arguing, no pleading, no detours. Just the truth and the boundary. I stared at my front door and said it out loud. My kid comes first. I didn't walk in blind. Not anymore. I called the one guy I trust without explanation, my older buddy from the job site, a straight shooter who doesn't scare easy. I need you nearby, I said. Not in my house, just close. He didn't ask why. He just said, I'm on my way. Then I did the boring stuff that saves your life later. From my phone, I locked down what I could. Bank access, cards, passwords. Not because money mattered most, but because control does. I saved the audio twice, backed it up, sent a copy to myself. Every threat, every laugh, every word. Proof that couldn't be twisted into a misunderstanding. I mapped the next 5 minutes in my head. Ethan out first. Quiet. Car door. Seatbelt. Anywhere but there. I pictured his small hands shaking and forced myself to stay steady. I parked closer, killed the engine, and walked up my own driveway like a stranger. The porch light felt too bright. My palm hit the doorknob, warm metal under my skin, and from inside, I heard them laughing. That laughter wasn't loud. That's what made it worse. It sounded comfortable, like they'd been doing this for a long time. Through the recorder, I heard Vanessa tell Ethan to stand right there, like he was a piece of furniture she was positioning for the room. He didn't argue. He didn't ask why. He just moved. Marcus walked past him and patted his shoulder, light, quick, the way men do when they think they've won. It wasn't kindness. It was a little victory lap. Vanessa chuckled, then reminded Ethan again, like it was some house rule written on the wall. Deaf, dumb, blind. Ethan didn't cry. He didn't even whimper. He just went still. That kind of stillness isn't calm. It's shutdown. It's a kid locking his feelings away because feelings make noise, and noise gets punished. I sat there listening, and I understood something that hit harder than the cheating, harder than the money on my table. My son wasn't just scared. He'd been reshaped, bent, conditioned. And that silence, my boy's silence, hurt more than any scream ever could. Marcus leaned over my paperwork like he was shopping. "What's this one worth?" he asked, tapping the envelope like it was a menu. Vanessa answered without hesitation. Numbers, guesses, confidence. She talked about my house, my land, my business the way people talk about a prize they already won. Then she laughed and said, "He won't notice. He never notices." Like I was some tired old dog that comes home, eats dinner, and falls asleep. Like I don't bleed. They started painting the future out loud. A newer truck. Better clothes. A fresh start. They called it a fresh start, but what they really meant was starting over, without my son. That phrase, fresh start, made me sick, because what they meant was starting over with what I built. Marcus asked about moving, about leaving the state, about disappearing clean. And in the middle of that daydream, they hit the only problem they couldn't buy off. Ethan. Not a kid, not a human, just an obstacle. I heard Vanessa say, "We take everything and we go." Marcus paused, then said it plain, like a plan that only needs one condition. "Yeah, as long as the boy stays quiet forever." Vanessa brought the cash back out like she couldn't help herself. I heard bills slap the coffee table, heard her fingers flipping them fast, counting like it was music. The same table Ethan used to do homework on. The same spot I'd set down my keys after a long day. Marcus tried to sound amused, but there was a hard edge under it. "That's another man's money," he said, like he was tasting the risk and liking it. Vanessa didn't even blink. She laughed and answered, "Now it's mine, not ours, mine. Possession. Power." The word hit like a punch. Ethan stood there watching. He didn't move toward it, didn't reach, didn't speak. He looked at that pile of cash the way a kid looks at a house fire, like he can't believe something so familiar can burn that fast. I could almost see his face in my mind, eyes wide, mouth shut, body locked. Vanessa kept counting, faster, excited. "My life's leveling up," she said. "From here on out, I'm on a different tier." That was the moment my doubt died. Not later. Not when I walked in. Right then. This wasn't something to work through. This was something to cut out. Clean. Now. I slid my key into the lock and turned it slow, like moving too fast might set off a bomb. My hand didn't shake, not because I was calm, but because something in me had gone hard. The deadbolt clicked, and the sound felt louder than it should have in that quiet suburban hallway. Inside, I heard sudden movement, quick steps, a scrape of furniture, the frantic hush people make when they've been caught mid-sin. Vanessa's voice snapped, low and urgent, and then there was the soft, messy sound of cash being shoved where it didn't belong. Too late. You can't unspill that kind of truth. I opened the door. The living room hit me like a punch. My paperwork fanned out, envelopes torn open, bills scattered on the coffee table like someone had dumped out my life and started sorting it. Marcus stood there frozen, eyes wide, caught between running and pretending. Ethan had pulled into himself, shoulders up, chin tucked, like he was bracing for punishment, like my arrival was just another danger. I stepped in and looked at all of it without blinking. Vanessa recovered first. She always did. She turned toward me with that practiced brightness like we were still playing house. "Oh, baby," she said, forcing a smile. "You're back early." I didn't answer. I just let my eyes do the talking. Cash on my table. My documents flipped open like someone had been rifling through my future. The safe, my safe, wasn't just accessed. It was violated. That feeling is hard to explain to someone who hasn't carried a family on his back. It's not only about money. It's about the disrespect, the entitlement, the fact they felt safe doing it under my roof. Then I looked at Marcus, a grown man in my living room, standing near my wife, breathing like he'd been running, a stranger with the nerve to be comfortable in my space. Ethan wouldn't look at me. His eyes stayed down, body tight, like he didn't know if I was here to save him or if I'd somehow make it worse. I kept my voice low, controlled. One question, clean and sharp. "Marcus, who are you?" Vanessa answered fast, too smooth. "He's just a friend." But her voice shook on the last word. Vanessa didn't even blink. "He's a family friend," she said, like she was explaining a neighbor dropping off sugar. "He just stopped by." The lie came out smooth. Too smooth. That's when I knew she'd been living in it for a while. I didn't argue with her. I turned my head toward Ethan instead. "Ethan," I said softly, keeping my voice steady. "Look at me." He couldn't. Not because he didn't want to, because he'd been trained. Vanessa's eyes cut toward him like a blade, one silent warning and his whole body locked up. A kid shouldn't freeze like that in front of his own father. That's not shyness. That's control. I felt something in me settle, cold and clear. This wasn't just cheating. This was my son being managed like a hostage. So I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and unlocked it without breaking eye contact with Vanessa. Her smile flickered. Marcus shifted his weight, suddenly unsure. I tapped the file I'd saved. One thumb, one breath. "I don't need anyone to explain," I said, quiet but sharp. "I already heard everything." Vanessa's face drained so fast it was almost unreal. She took half a step back like the floor had moved under her. Marcus's confidence cracked too. His voice came out higher than before. You heard it? For real?" I didn't answer him. She thought silence was her weapon. She forgot I had a voice too. I just pressed play. Vanessa's voice filled the room from my phone, clear as day. The same voice she used to tell me good morning. Now it was saying, "Be deaf, be dumb, be blind." Then the line that made my stomach turn all over again. "You tell your dad, you're dead." Ethan flinched like he got hit by the sound. His eyes went wide and something finally broke loose. He started crying, hard, ugly, the kind of crying a kid does when he's been holding it in for too long. Not for attention, for air. Vanessa lunged for the story she always used to survive. "He's lying," she snapped. "He made it up." But Marcus looked from my phone to Ethan to the cash on my table, and his fear did what truth always does. It loosened his tongue. He blurted, "No, she said it. She really said it." The second Marcus realized I had proof, his whole attitude flipped. He stopped being the tough guy in my living room and turned into a man trying to save his own skin. "Look, man, listen," he said, hands half up like that would make him innocent. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." And then it all poured out. The hotel. The nights. The months. How Vanessa would text him when I was on a job. How she complained about sheets and cameras and staff. So she wanted my house instead. He talked fast, tripping over his own words, trying to get ahead of the blame. Vanessa snapped at him like a cornered animal. "You're a coward," she hissed. "Shut up, Marcus." Her voice had that same sharpness I'd heard on the recording, the one Ethan knew too well. But I didn't look at either of them. I kept my eyes on my son. Ethan's cheeks were wet, his shoulders shaking, like his body didn't remember how to stop. I crouched slightly so I wasn't towering over him. "Ethan," I said, soft, steady. "Are you safe right now?" He swallowed hard. His lips trembled, and he whispered the sentence that tore me open. "She said she'd kill me if I told you." Vanessa heard that and switched masks so fast it was almost impressive. One second she was snarling at Marcus, the next she was crying like the victim. "Graham, please," she sobbed, hands to her chest. "This is a misunderstanding. He's twisting things. I would never—" I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just pointed. Ethan's arm. The bruise I'd seen that morning, now looking uglier under the living room light. The kind of mark that doesn't come from falling at school the way she'd claimed. Marcus, desperate and stupid, stepped right into it. "She hit him," he blurted. "She's been hitting him. I saw it. She told him to shut up." Vanessa's eyes flashed, all the tears disappearing in a blink. She turned on Marcus, venom sharp. "You better watch your mouth." Then she lunged toward the coffee table, toward my cash and my papers, like she could grab everything and run and still win. That's when my body moved before my mind did. I stepped in, blocked her path, and my voice came out low and final. "Enough is enough." Vanessa tried one last time to bend reality. She pointed at Ethan like he was the problem. "He's lying," she said, voice tight, eyes hard. "He's always been a problem. He's making this up to turn you against me." I didn't debate her. I didn't defend myself. I just unlocked my phone again and hit play. Another clip, shorter, cleaner, sharper. Vanessa's own voice filled the room, clear as a bell. "Be deaf, be dumb, be blind." The same words she'd used to cage my son. the same words she'd hoped would keep him quiet forever. The room went dead, like somebody sucked the oxygen out. Even Marcus stopped moving. You could have heard a pin drop on my hardwood floor. Ethan looked up at me then. Really looked. Not the scared glance from the door earlier. This was different. This was a kid seeing, for the first time in a long time, that someone believed him. That someone was finally standing between him and the fear. I stepped closer, kept my voice low. "You don't have to carry this anymore," I told him. "Not one more day." And I pulled him into my arms. Ethan held on like he'd been waiting for that his whole life. Vanessa just stood there, frozen, like her control had finally snapped. I didn't let go of Ethan until I knew he was steady. Then I looked at Marcus. No yelling, no drama, just a cold line in my voice. "Put the money down, now." Marcus swallowed and did it fast, like he'd been waiting for permission to stop being brave. Bills hit the table in uneven stacks. "Man, I'm sorry," he stammered. I didn't know it was like that. I just want to leave." Vanessa grabbed his arm like he was a life raft. "Don't you dare," she snapped. Her nails dug in. She needed him there, not for love, just for leverage. 2 against 1, a witness she could twist. I stepped between them and my son. I shifted Ethan behind me without even thinking, the way your body moves when your mind finally catches up to the truth. "I'm not hitting anybody," I said, calm and flat, "but I am calling the police, and you're both staying right here until I do." Vanessa's face twisted, rage breaking through panic. She shouted, loud enough to shake the walls, "You won't! You don't have the guts!" I didn't argue with her. I didn't explain myself. I just pulled my phone out and dialed 911 right in front of them, thumb steady even though my chest was on fire. Vanessa's confidence cracked the moment she realized I wasn't bluffing. "Graham, please," she started, voice breaking, hands up like she was suddenly harmless. "Don't do this. We can talk. I made a mistake." The same mouth that threatened my kid was begging me to be reasonable. Marcus backed toward the hallway, eyes darting, looking for a back door like a rat that's seen the trap close. I stepped sideways and blocked the path without even thinking. Not violent, just present. A wall. Nobody gets past me to Ethan. I turned my head just enough to see my boy. "Ethan," I said, low and calm, "go to your room. Lock the door. Stay there until I come get you." He nodded fast and moved like he'd been waiting for permission to breathe. Vanessa watched him go, and the begging vanished. Her voice dropped into something colder than anger. "If you talk, I swear I'll—" I cut her off with my body, one step forward, square between her and the hallway. "No," I said, quiet but hard. "Nobody threatens my son again. Not today. Not ever." Behind the closed door, I could hear Ethan breathing. Fast, uneven, like he'd run a mile without moving. That sound wrecked me more than any yelling could. I kept my eyes on Vanessa and Marcus, but my mind stayed with my kid in that room, trying to make himself small. While the dispatcher asked questions, I lowered my voice and spoke toward the hallway. "Ethan," I called softly, "you don't have to tell anyone everything. Just tell me. One thing at a time. Are you hurt right now?" There was a pause, then his voice, tiny and shaky. He started with the bruises, then the yelling, then the time she made him stand still, made him clean until his arms shook, made him stay quiet like it was a law. He told me about being shoved into corners, being locked out, being warned what would happen if he messed up. I stood there listening, feeling something inside me crack open. Then he said the sentence that turned my stomach to stone. I thought, "You chose her over me." That's the sentence every man needs to hear before it's too late. That sentence does something to a man. It tells him exactly when he stopped being a father and started being late. The first knock at the door didn't sound like help. It sounded like reality. 2 officers stepped in, calm voices, steady eyes, people who've seen messy homes before. My buddy from the job site was out front, close enough if things went sideways. I felt my shoulders drop half an inch just knowing I wasn't alone. I handed the officer my phone. "There's audio," I said. "No speeches, no drama, just facts." I pointed to Ethan's arm when he came out of his room, hesitant, eyes searching my face for permission to exist. The officer's gaze softened when he saw the bruising. That look said, "We're taking this seriously." Marcus tried to talk his way out of it. Too late. They kept him there for a statement. Vanessa started pacing, talking fast, changing stories mid-sentence. Then they told her the words she never expected to hear inside my house. She had to leave. No contact with Ethan. Not tonight. Not after she calms down. Now. Vanessa exploded. "This is my house," she screamed, like volume could rewrite ownership. The officer didn't blink. "Ma'am, it's not." And for the first time all day, the air felt breathable. Once Vanessa realized she wasn't winning, she tried the oldest trick in the book, turned the tears toward the kid. She stepped toward Ethan, voice suddenly soft, motherly, full of sweetheart, and "I'm sorry," like she could erase months of fear with one performance. I moved before she got close. "Don't touch my son," I said, flat and final. No yelling, no shaking, just a line in concrete. Ethan didn't look at her. Not hate, not anger, just nothing. The kind of nothing that happens after a child's trust has been burned too many times. While the officers handled the paperwork, I gathered what was left on my coffee table, cash shoved into sloppy stacks, envelopes torn open, my property papers bent at the corners. Little damage, big message. We were inside your life. Vanessa kept talking. Apologies, excuses, promises. It all sounded like noise now. They walked her to the door. She looked back like she expected me to hesitate. I didn't. "Pack your bags," I said. "It's over." The house got quiet again, but it wasn't peace. It was that heavy, aching quiet you feel after a storm, when everything's still standing but nothing feels safe. Even the familiar sounds felt wrong. The fridge hum, the floor settling, my own footsteps. Ethan kept flinching at every little noise, a cabinet closing, a car door outside. He'd jerk his head like he was bracing for the next hit, the next command, and every time it happened, my chest tightened. Because I knew I didn't just have a bruised kid in front of me, I had a scared one. I called a clinic and got him in the same night. I didn't want tomorrow. Tomorrow is where excuses live. We sat in the waiting room under those harsh lights that make everyone look tired. Ethan's hand rested in mine, small and cold. I stared at the bruises like I could burn them off with anger. I kept thinking about all the times I'd walked in, kissed Vanessa, and missed the truth living right under my roof. I leaned close to Ethan and said it more to myself than him. This never happens again, not while I'm breathing. And somewhere between the paperwork and the quiet, Ethan's body finally gave up. He fell asleep on my shoulder, heavy, trusting, exhausted. I didn't move. I just held him. The doctor came in with that calm voice they use when they're trying not to scare a kid. She asked routine questions, checked Ethan's arm, asked about pain. Then she looked at me, straight, professional, and said, "How long has this been going on?" My throat closed. I couldn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because every answer sounded like a confession. Weeks, months, too long. Any number made me feel like I'd failed my own blood. Ethan glanced at me like he was worried he'd gotten me in trouble. That's what broke me most, that a child could be hurt and still feel responsible for the adult's consequences. I squeezed his hand. "Hey," I said, low and steady. "This isn't your fault. Not even a little." I watched his shoulders drop a fraction, like he'd been holding that blame for years. On the drive home, I made decisions the way men do when they finally wake up. Therapy, a counselor who knows trauma, a meeting with his school so they stop missing the signs, a plan that doesn't depend on hope. And I told Ethan the truth I should have told him a long time ago. I didn't see it. But from now on, I'm here. I've got you. We got home after the clinic and the house felt different. Same walls, different air. I didn't sit down. I couldn't. I started cleaning the living room like I was trying to scrub a memory off the floor. I gathered the scattered envelopes, smoothed the bent corners, stacked everything the way it should have been. I wiped the coffee table until the wood shined, even though I knew the stain wasn't on the surface. Then I handled the stuff men handle when they're done being careless. I moved the safe. Not just hide it better. I changed where it lived in the house, how it opened, who had access. I changed passwords, bank, email, everything. Every door I didn't know I'd left unlocked. Ethan watched me from the hallway, quiet. Then he asked, barely above a whisper, "Is she coming back?" I didn't soften it. Kids deserve certainty. "No," I said. "She's not." He held still for a second, then let out the first real breath I'd heard from him in months. And when he spoke again, it was small but steady, no tremble. "Dad?" That one word, Dad, sat in my chest like weight and medicine at the same time, and it forced me to look at the whole thing straight. The cheating was loud, sure. It's the part everybody talks about. But it wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what happened in the quiet. The part I missed because I was busy, because I wanted peace, because I trusted the wrong smile. I own that. I was gone too much. I asked, "You okay?" and accepted, "I'm fine." I let my home run on autopilot because I thought providing was the same as protecting. Not anymore. I rearranged my life the way you rearrange a room after a fire, keeping what matters, tossing what doesn't. Ethan comes first. Work comes second. Always. Because a man's dignity isn't about pride or looking tough. It's about being the shield when somebody smaller can't be won. So I'll ask you, man to man, if you were me, what would you have done sooner? Don't wait until you have to hear your own kid go silent like that. Providing keeps the lights on, but protecting your child, that's what makes you a man. So here's the truth, clean and ugly. Vanessa wasn't just cheating, she was abusing my son and treating my home like a playground for her lover, Marcus. The cash on my table, the deeds in her hands, that was my life's work laid out like trophies. And the part that still shakes me? I didn't actually go anywhere. I left the way she wanted me to leave. Then I stayed close, hit record, and let the truth speak for itself. That recording didn't just expose an affair, it exposed a threat. It saved Ethan. Vanessa lost everything the moment the mask came off. Ethan got out. And I learned the lesson too late, but I learned it for real. A man's first job isn't money. It's safety. It's love. It's showing up, especially when your kid is too scared to speak. So I'm asking you, man to man, if you're a father, do you choose silence or do you choose your child? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you want more real stories like this, subscribe and stay with me.